Out his manifesto, Breivik blames the feminist revolution for Europe's downfall. He says he even tried to measure the relative decadence of each European country by determining how willing women were in each country to have one-night stands. In one part of Breivik's manifesto, he writes, fact, 60 to 70% of all cultural Marxist multiculturalists are women. This partly explains why the gradual feminist revolution is directly linked to the implementation of multiculturalist doctrines. These feminist cultural Marxists do not only want more benefits and rights for themselves, they want it all and have more or less been awarded with everything they could ever dream of achieving. They now have complete matriarchal supremacy domestically and exercise substantial influence in politics. He also writes, females have a significantly higher proportion of erotic capital than males due to biological differences. Men have significantly more prevalent sexual urges than females and are thus easily manipulated. Jeff Charlotte, how does this fit into his overall ideology?
It's really, I mean, this has been one of the things that hasn't been commented on enough, how central his critique of feminism is to the whole manifesto. You know, you get into long sections where he's really picking up all these sort of talking points of the American Christian right, and he goes a little further. He goes as far as sort of the far edges of the American Christian right, saying that women should not pursue advanced degrees, and he really gets into this kind of this sort of breeding frenzy described by my friend Catherine Joyce in her book Quiverful, which is a great source on this American Christian right movement that sees Christian women as somehow, and American and European women as somehow not doing their job by having enough babies to compete with the Muslims. And, you know, as crazy as that seems, as you know, as I've written another book, there's plenty of U.S. congressmen who endorse this idea. He reproduces a long article by an American named Philip Longman on this idea of restoring the patriarchy, that this is what's necessary to fight Islam. And, of course, it gets into, as with so many of these kinds of texts, this constant sort of description of women's sexual morality. He says you can measure the weakness of Western countries' ability to fight Islam, as you said, by counting one-night stands, which he claims to have done with his group of buddies by traveling around Europe and seeing, you know, how many people they could sleep with. So there's, I mean, this sort of very, that sounds crazy, but then you start looking at the sources he has, and right from the very beginning, he's constantly returning to this idea that feminism, that women's rights are at the heart of the kind of sort of fifth column attack on Western strength in response to Islam.